Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show, or RAMZPAUL live. We've been doing this every night since the start of the Iranian war or excursion. And actually the war ended the first day, according to Trump. I don't know about you, but I look forward to that. Every day Trump gets out there and declares victory. We'll take a look at it. It's hilarious. Every day we've had a glorious victory. And Iran's been obliterated. They don't have any army left, no navy, no missiles. And then every day missiles are hitting. I don't know how he squares that in his head, but it's become sort of a high comedy at this point. I'm sure tomorrow he'll come out and declare victory. He did that today. Every day he declares victory. So we've been doing these broadcasts, and it's more than just Iran. If you want to talk about other topics or some other news that's happening, and we'll get into that. But thank you so much for being here. It's good to see all of you. It's like a community. I do appreciate that. Podcasts or shows like this are really replacing the old school media. People don't trust the old school media. And I'm proud to be part of this. And thank you so much where we can look at the stories. I don't have advertisers. I don't have funders. And you guys are there. We're all together and we can just talk about this honestly. And that used to be impossible. So I think we need to take advantage of this because there's certain people and groups like the ADL that would love to shut down all discussion, even in America. And we'll get into that too. So the time we have, we should really enjoy and appreciate it that we have this ability. The time could be short. And again, if you want to support the show, let me bring up the banner here. First of all, if you want to write me, as Paul Ramsey, P.O. Box 8093, Fayetteville, Arkansas 72703. And I love to get letters in the P.O. Box, and I appreciate that. Fayetteville is like the closest major city to me. Major's less than 100,000 people, but so that's where I get my mail, even though I'm like 40 miles away. But I do appreciate that. If you want to, let me just bring up. Oh, here we go. Powerchat is a good way you can send a questions or help support the show. I do appreciate that. YouTube has SuperChats and Rumble has Rants. Speaking of which, one of the things I always do, because I don't have a producer, I'm it. I'm the producer. I'm the director. I do all the content. I'm it. And I'm like old school. And this is the way to be. But I need to check to make sure everything's working on Rumble and on YouTube. It is working on Rumble. And it's good to see Magnum Opus and to be here and other people, Scott James. Again, guys, if I have a problem with my mic, just let me know. I had one of those earlier. But I think I got that fixed. All right, now I'm going to go to X to make sure this is streaming okay on X. StreamYards used to have some problems with X, but I think we're okay now. So yeah, we're okay. We're live here. I'm going to pin this to the profile and we're good to go. We're good to go. And thank you all for being here. And we'll just drop right into it. I guess the big thing to talk about, we'll just kind of unpack the whole ceasefire and peace negotiations. You remember Trump originally, none of this makes logical sense, so don't try to make logical sense of this. Because if you totally defeat an enemy, you don't need peace negotiations or anything, right? You won, unconditional surrender. In fact, Trump was saying unconditional surrender. He was saying that a lot. And but that never really quite happened. I had a, before I go to this was kind of funny. Maybe I can find this. This was hilarious. What someone they put together all the times that Trump was talking about declaring victory. And he did that today. So let's take a look at that first. I'm going to go a little different way here. And here's him declaring victory today.
Well, I think we're going to end it. I can't tell you for sure. I don't like to say this. We've won this. This war has been won. The only one that likes to keep it going is the fake news. I mean,
All right. So, what are the missile attacks, Mr. President, on Israel, which just happened a few minutes ago? Are they fake news? Are the attacks on the Gulf states? Is that fake news? Is the Strait of Hormuz being closed fake news? So, what is he talking about? We won. What does that mean? When you're still fighting, and we're planning to send more troops to the Middle East, what does that even mean? When you win, that means it's over. And so I'm not even quite sure what he's trying to say here.
New York Times, you read the New York Times, it's like we're not winning a war where they have no Navy and they have no Air Force and they have no nothing.
Well, they have missiles, and they do have a Navy. They have those little speedboats and those underwater drones. That's how they do it. And they don't have much of an Air Force, but they use missiles, and they have like a 1,000,000-man army. So I don't know what you're talking about. If they have nothing, then why is the Strait of Hormuz closed? If they have nothing, then why is Israel being attacked every night? If they have nothing, why did we have to evacuate all our bases? We have evacuated our bases from the Middle East. Iran drove us out of the Middle East. If they have nothing, why did our aircraft carrier have to retreat? This doesn't make logical sense. And if they have nothing, why are you trying to get into these? Why are you asking for a ceasefire? Which we'll see. We're trying to get a ceasefire. But why do you need a ceasefire with an enemy that doesn't have anything? They can't fire anymore. Why do you need a ceasefire? So it doesn't even make a lot of logical sense, but this is what Trump is saying.
And we literally have planes flying over Tehran and other parts of their country. They can't do a thing about it.
Well, they shot down a few. And so this is just a weird thing. And when they put this all together, on day one, I won, Iran, total victory. Day two, I won again. People can't believe it. Day three, still winning. Experts say nobody wins like I win. Day four, victory keeps coming. The fake news won't report it. Day five, everyone is talking about how much I'm winning. Unbelievable. Day six, they say it couldn't be done. I keep winning. They admit it privately. And this is all real quotes Donald Trump said. Day seven, nobody thought winning could be this winning. I did. Day eight, even my critics say I won today. Incredible. Day nine, winning is so exhausting, but I don't get tired. Day 10, I've won more than anyone ever in history. True story. And it goes on and on and on. And he does this every day. And either he's like insane or he thinks this is some kind of clever spin. But it doesn't make a lot of sense. You're asking for more money from Congress, another $200 billion for a war that you say is done. And you're threatening Iran. They better not escalate the war. You're going to wipe them out. Remember, he said in 48 hours, if you don't open the Strait of Hormuz, we're just going to destroy all your energy. And then he bitched out. He said, well, we've extended that for 5 days because we're having these negotiations with Iran. Iran says, we're not negotiating with you. Fuck off. What are you talking about? So it's a very strange thing, but that's what Trump has been doing here. All right, let's get involved with some of this ceasefire, and hopefully this can happen. Hey, I already got a rant, so thank you. This is Brohouse. This seems odd for a man talking about ending a war or wrapping it up. Yeah, this is what we're talking about. Army raises enlistment age to 42, eases marijuana restrictions. So it used to be you couldn't join the Army unless you were under 35 or 35 or under. Now, hey, so you older guys, you can join the Army. And yeah, obviously they want more people in the Army. It's just ridiculous. It's just become a bad joke at this point about how Trump is saying all this stuff. And it doesn't make sense, even what he is saying internally, right? So it'd be one thing if you said, yeah, we're totally winning the war. We haven't won yet, but we're kicking their ass. That'd be one thing. I don't think it'd be true, but it'd be one thing to say that. But to say you've already won the war, but they need to stop attacking us, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's where we are now. All right. And another thing doesn't make sense if we've already won the war is why are we trying to negotiate a ceasefire? How can they fire back if they've all been defeated? But it looks like this is what is happening. The United States is floating these stories. Iran has responded to this. What is happening? When Trump said on Monday before the market opened, and he said this because I think he didn't want the market to crash. So he understood if he said the war's about over, people would get excited. So he said, we haven't really good negotiations with Iran. And because we're having such good negotiations, I've extended the deadline to totally wipe out their infrastructure, which we claim we've done anyway, for 5 days. That's what he said. And Iran said, we don't know what the fuck you're talking about. We're not negotiating with you. But I think there's a kernel of truth there. And what I mean by the kernel of truth is the United States has been in contact with Iran during this time through a third party. And rumor has it is probably Pakistan. I've heard Egypt, Britain, or Russia. But whatever, there's a third party. It's like when you're in a junior high and if you want to ask if a girl likes you, so you hand a note to your friend to hand to her. That's what we're kind of doing. We're handing a note asking, hey, Iran, can we have like a ceasefire? Come on, you won't talk to us. You've ghosted us. I guess Steve Witkoff has been trying to contact the Iranians and they're ghosting him. So we're having to go through a third party because Iran, understandably, is upset because the last 2 times they negotiated with us, we did a sneak attack and murdered their people. So they're not in a mood for directly talking to us. So we're going through an in-between, right? Maybe that's what Trump meant. I don't know. But one of the things that Trump has proposed is a ceasefire period of, let me just show you this. Sorry. I don't think I shared this screen here. Let me show you guys this here. This is a zero hedge. And there's a lot of news coming out. I'm trying to do reputable sources. Sometimes there's some conflict, so who knows? And you're dealing with the Middle East, and they're all a bunch of liars. Israel is, Jews, Arabs are all liars. So it's hard to understand this all. And our country, sadly, is now too. But we're trying to sift through this. So it looks like the Trump administration reached out to Iran for a ceasefire, which again is strange if we've already destroyed them, but whatever. A ceasefire for a period of 1 month will be announced according to a mechanism that Witkoff and Kushner are working on. And as we're going to see, Iran has made it clear that they're not going to talk to Witkoff and Kushner anymore. They won't. And part of they said they'll maybe, if there are discussions, the reports are they will talk to J.D. Vance. And they've been screwed twice by Witkoff and Kushner. And I don't want to say this sounds anti-Semitic, but they're Jews. And there's a feeling that, they don't have to treat outsiders the same as their own people. A little bit of duplicity. Whereas J.D. Vance is Catholic or Christian, maybe he'll be more honest. So I don't think they're going to deal anymore with Kushner and Witkoff. I mean, Kushner, he has no qualifications except he married Donald Trump's daughter. That's his qualification. And he's friends with Netanyahu. And Witkoff is literally his golfing buddy. All right. So the U.S. aims for a month-long ceasefire. I don't know if Iran will agree to this. I doubt they will, because they would see this as a ceasefire just for us to try to get all our forces to the Middle East. The agreement with Iran is very similar to the understandings in Gaza and Lebanon. By the way, Israel just invaded Lebanon again. And we have a 15-point agreement we submitted to Iran. And it's kind of interesting because most all of this would have been acceptable to Iran before the war. So there was no need for the war. But we're going to go through this. Automatically cancel the threat of reimposition of sanctions. So this is great for Iran. Iran has already been under sanctions for a long time, and Trump has lifted sanctions, especially their oil, because Trump's worried about the price of oil in the world market. So Iran is no longer sanctioned, and we're saying, hey, we'll remove the sanctions. Maybe we can spin that as reparations. I don't know, because Iran wants reparations. Dismantling Iran's existing nuclear capabilities. Agreement with Iran. Iran vows to never seek nuclear weapons. They've already said this since 2015. They've said this over and over and over. They don't want nuclear weapons. So this is nothing new. Preventing the enrichment of any nuclear material in Iranian territory. Delivery of enriched uranium to the IAEA. Decommission and destroying the sites, their power plants, and have IAEA full access to all information. Iran abandons proxies approach. This is where they support like Hezbollah. Stop funding and arming militias in the region. That means like in Iran and Lebanon. Keep the Strait of Hormuz open without any closure. Postpone the decision on the ballistic missiles program, so we want to kick it down the road. Lifting all sanctions on Iran. So in exchange for all this, we'll lift all sanctions and support the development of a civilian nuclear program in this one site. And again, cancel the threat of sanctions. So a lot of this 15-point plan, a lot of it seems kind of repetitive. We're saying we don't want you to develop nuclear weapons, which Iran has always been okay with. Some conflict because Iran does enrich uranium for their civilian power plants. And we kind of say, yeah, you can do that, but no, not really. So we got to explain that. And the proxy thing is to try to satisfy Israel because Iran supports Hezbollah and the Houthis, and we don't want them to do that. And we're kicking the can on the ballistic program. So anyway, this is kind of what we sent through a third party to Iran. Like, let's have a ceasefire, and then we can discuss that. So that is the plan that reportedly, and I've seen this in a couple of places that we have sent to Iran. All right. As I said earlier, Iran has made it clear they're not going to negotiate with Witkoff or Kushner because they backstabbed them, which they did. So I think they want to deal with JD Vance, not that. Art the Clown, I had $3 on Powerchat. Did you see Trump's district just flip blue? Yeah. In Florida was a Republican district. There was a special election and it went to the Democrat. And we're going to see more of that. Trump is extremely unpopular now because a lot of Republicans are demoralized and independents don't support Trump anymore. I mean, there's a hardcore MAGA base, which consists of Zionist Jews, Christian Zionists, and then Fox News boomers. That's basically his base now. But that's not enough to win. Previously, he was able to win because he got a lot of independents and a lot of other people that were interested in the things like, okay, let's protect our borders, let's deport people, which Trump has abandoned, and let's not get involved with foreign wars, which, as we see, Trump has abandoned. So thank you. That is I did see that, and that does not bode well for Trump at all. All right. All right. Now, Iran's response to the potential ceasefire and all this is very similar to Russia. Russia, we've always tried to get them into a ceasefire and they've refused because a lot of times the ceasefire is just a way for the enemy to try to regroup. And the Iranian official said reports circulating in the media about a temporary ceasefire plan between Iran and the United States are not true. The Iranian armed forces do not need a temporary ceasefire to reorganize. Operations will continue until objectives are achieved. So Iran is just stating, and again, what they say today might not hold true tomorrow. So I'm just saying this is what they're saying now is they don't need a ceasefire, which is interesting because supposedly if they're totally defeated, you think they'd want a ceasefire, and but that's not their case at all. All right, so Iran, they kind of put their negotiating positions out, and I know they're far apart, but actually that they're starting to throw stuff out there is kind of a good sign. Trump has totally abandoned the idea of regime change, which is really going to piss off Israel because the whole idea was to get like some gay Jew maybe running Iran that be sympathetic towards Israel. That's not going to happen. So now we're just talking shit that could have been negotiated before the war. In fact, we were negotiating it before Israel and America did a sneak attack on them. All right. So Iran, they're responding. And this is their supreme leader who's supposedly injured. His dad was killed on that sneak attack. So was his wife and I believe his daughter. Officially, Khamenei, we will accept negotiations and a ceasefire in 3 conditions. So he says, okay, we'll have a ceasefire and we'll negotiate. But number one, disarm Israel of nuclear weapons. So that's not going to happen. The second condition, recognize Palestine as an independent state and liberate all its lands. That won't happen. Third condition, the United States signs a commitment it will not interfere in the affairs of any regional country from now on. What? That's what we do. So Iran, they threw out a bunch of conditions that are like, yeah, we can't do that. I mean, they control us. What you think Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham, or Ted Cruz are controlled by AIPAC are going to agree to that? This is no way. This is no way. So they asked, then Iran followed up with some more demands. This is what they want. And again, who knows? This is when you start negotiations, both sides have demands or maybe unrealistic. So I don't see this as necessarily negative. Maybe this could lead to eventually, if JD Vance seems intelligent. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I like him better now than Trump. At least he's not 80 years old. Maybe he could work through this. And he's not a Christian Zionist. Iran's ceasefire conditions. Hand over Netanyahu to the International Criminal Court. Of course, that's not going to happen. Withdraw to the October 7 borders. Israel should do that. Cancel Trump's plan for Gaza. Oh, that's where they want to make Gaza into like a casino. Lift all sanctions and frozen funds. Well, it looks like we're willing to lift sanctions, and we have lifted sanctions on their oil. Recognize Iran's nuclear rights. And again, I think we're really on the same page here because based on our 15-point plan, the United States said we're okay with them having nuclear power for energy, just not weapons. And Iran's always said they don't want weapons and they're okay with that. They just want it for energy. So I think we could have a place of being common ground on that point. Withdraw from Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen. I think we should evacuate all U.S. bases from Arab lands. Well, we can't do that. I mean, we've already evacuated by the way all our bases. We have. They've kicked us out of the Middle East for now. But we can't permanently. If we do permanently, then we don't have the petrodollar. And I'm not going to explain the petrodollar again tonight. I've explained it many times, but we got to have troops there. That's part of the agreement so we can run deficits. So that's not a reasonable demand. If we withdrew all the U.S. forces from the Middle East, then we would have to balance our budget and not have a deficit. And that causes issues. Trump must issue a public apology to Khamenei. That's not in the DNA for Trump ever to do. Compensate Iran for every sanction imposed on it. Again, we're not going to do that. The closest thing we'll give reparations is say we'll no longer have sanctions. So there you go. Those are your reparations, and just live with that. All right. Then Iran, they had some more updates on this whole situation. Came out today. Important, what happened between the Iranians and the Americans is starting to unfold. There were no real conversations or direct negotiations between the two sides. So Trump, as I said, he oversells things. That's his nature. He exaggerates. It's a nice way to say lie, maybe, but that's what Trump does. So Kushner and Witkoff, they weren't meeting in person with Iranians. And that was the thing when supposedly Trump on Monday morning said, "Oh, yeah, we've had these great negotiations." The media didn't bother to ask, like, "Oh, really? Well, who were meeting? Who met on the Iranian side, and who were your negotiators? When were the negotiations, and where did they meet? What country?" No one asked that because it didn't happen. It didn't happen. The best we did is we sent some messages to Iran through like Pakistan or Russia or maybe Egypt. All right. All that happened was that the Americans through the Pakistan, so Iran is saying through Pakistan, sent a message containing 15 conditions for ending the war, hoping that Iran would respond. So Iran has received the 15 conditions that we said. Iran responded through the Speaker of the Iranian parliament, confirming that it is putting forward its own conditions, which we just saw, for ending the war, which include paying compensation. We could probably get around that by lifting the sanctions, saying that would be like paying compensation, and discussing the new status for the Strait of Hormuz that allows it to generate revenue from ships passing through. So Iran is strategically winning this war, if you notice. They are, because the whole idea of regime change is gone now. And now we're focused on the Strait of Hormuz, which before the war, it was open. Everyone could go through it for free. Now Iran's like, why are we allowing ships to go through for free? We should charge them like $1 million to get through. And maybe we should do that. And so now in fact, they're doing that right now. And so that is what they're talking about. And the Strait of Hormuz. In addition to the evacuation of all U.S. bases in the region, they're saying that they want us to evacuate these bases because they don't trust that a year from now we won't backstab them again, and because of Israel attack Iran again. I don't think that's likely to happen. This war has been so unpopular and such a colossal fuck up that it's like Vietnam. When Vietnam happened, the idea in 1975 or 76 we would go into another war in Asia was like, no way. Everyone was against it. And I think that, and when I was a kid, it was like, oh, we don't want to get into another Vietnam. I think the new expression in the future will be, we don't want to get involved with another Iran. So I don't think that's going to happen. But we can't really pull out of the basis and still keep the petrodollar. So that's not going to happen. Let's see here. All right. As for the American conditions, which I had previously published and which were reported by Israel's Channel 12, they are unacceptable to Iran because they include Iran abandoning support for its allies. So Iran, their allies include Hezbollah, which are militia fighters that are fighting right now because Israel, they want to expand and take much of Lebanon. In fact, they just invaded Lebanon during this whole incident here. And Hezbollah, they've been really good fighters. I think it was in 2006, Israel invaded and Hezbollah kicked their ass. And then the Israelis were all excited that they murdered their leadership through the pager thing. Remember, they had like bombs in their pager. And they said they totally destroyed Hezbollah. But Hezbollah's kicking their ass again. Hezbollah seems to be pretty good fighters. They're not directly controlled by Iran, but they receive weapons and so forth from Iran. Just like Ukraine is not directly controlled by the United States, obviously. Zelensky does his own thing, but he gets weapons and intelligence from the United States. So they're not going to give that up, they said. And then in Yemen, there's a civil war going on in Yemen. It's a desert, very poor country. But Yemen, they have Shia fighters, the Houthis, and the Iranians support that. So the Iranians are saying, no, we're not going to give up support that. And the complete destruction of its nuclear and missile programs. This is what Iran rejected. And so they're not going to get rid of their missiles. Obviously, they need their ballistic missiles to defend themselves against Israel. They've always said they don't want a nuclear weapon, so they're able to work on that. No actual negotiations took place. Yeah, it was Trump exaggerating things for the market. Just an exchange of messages through intermediaries. That is the reality, no more and less. This is what happened. I believe them. I think that is probably, by looking at all the evidence. It's kind of sad that I believe the Iranians now more than the Americans, but they seem more honest at this point. So this is where we are right now. So Trump desperately wants an off-ramp from this war. Because again, he was sold a war by Netanyahu, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Mark Levin, and Pete Hegseth, that this would be like Venezuela. We bomb them, do a decapitation strike. So we're in negotiations with them. We'll do a sneak attack on them when they don't expect it, murder their people, and then people would rise up in Iran and then would get a gay-friendly Jewish government. And that hasn't happened. And we didn't have a plan B. We thought that happened within the weekend, so like Venezuela. So there was no plan B, and we don't know what the hell to do. So Trump is kind of stuck now, so he wants an off-ramp. Now, this is not what Israel wants. Israel wants Iran to totally be controlled by someone that's friendly to them or broken apart. And they see this as a last opportunity with Trump to do that, because they see there's another president that's not going to do this anymore. And I don't think they will either. This war is becoming so unpopular, we can't repeat it. And so they understand that. So they want to keep escalating it. And that's why they're doing false flags. I believe they did a false flag with an attack on our base in the Indian Ocean. We claimed, that was Iran. That shows they have these long-range ballistic missiles. And Iran said, that wasn't us. And the head of NATO said, hey, we're not going to comment on it. It was Iran. So it wasn't Iran, it was Israel, because they want to try to expand the war. So that's going to be the problem too. And so Trump has the problem is, how do I get the hell out of this war, save some face so I can, every day he's declaring victory, but I can declare it a victory. But then he has the Israelis on his ass. The neocons would be pissed. So he's got himself in a little pickle here, and he's trying to find a way out. As this one guy said about the terms here, Trump's ceasefire terms are the exact same as pre-war, except the U.S. promises to lift all sanctions on Iran. This means Iran gained from the war. This is an American defeat by definition. Yeah, this has been a defeat for the Americans. It's been a humiliating defeat. I know Trump always wants to spin it because he likes the bullshit. That's a victory. It's not a victory. The United States goal was to overthrow Iran, put a government in that was friendly to Israel. That hasn't happened. And now we're focused on the Strait of Hormuz, trying to get that open. It was previously open. And now we've dropped the sanctions on Iran. There used to be sanctions on Iran. So, yeah, definitely Iran has the initiative in the war. Because the war is just not about, like Pete said, oh, it's about raining death and killing people. Well, it's more than that. It's trying to get strategic objectives. And the Iranians, they've been able to fulfill their strategic objectives. The United States has not. And it's like you can say, oh, we really won the war in Vietnam because we killed a lot more North Vietnamese than they killed Americans, which is true, but we lost the war because the North Vietnamese, they got their strategic objective. They conquered Vietnam. In the end, they drove America out, became too expensive for us. So they won. And you can say, yeah, but we won every battle. So what? That's not what a war is about. So that is the thing. All right. And then we just have a little bit of history I want to show you here. So I'm not just trying to bullshit you. But Iran, a long time ago, has said, if you look here, Iran agreed to that in the very first paragraph of the Iran deal that Trump tore up. So this was under Obama. They had a deal that was working. I'm not a big fan of Obama, but they did have this Iranian deal. And under the deal, Iran reaffirms that under no circumstance will Iran ever seek, develop, or require any nuclear weapons. So Iran back then, they've always said this, because you remember Trump said, all they have to say is they don't want a nuclear weapon and we're fine. But they've been saying this since 2015, you stupid fuck. What are you talking about? So that hasn't really changed. So that was always a fake news. So there we go. They're on that. A little bit what I was talking about here. Just some more, and this has been reported by multiple sources that the Iranians don't want to deal with Witkoff or Kushner, who are Jewish, but only J.D. Vance, who's a Christian. I can understand that. And for a variety of reasons. Christians, again, they have a universal morality, meaning it's wrong to be deceptive to other people, even your enemies, whereas Judaism doesn't have that morality. They believe it's wrong to lie to within other Jews, but not the outsiders. And Kushner and Witkoff have already betrayed Iran twice. They did that last year and now this year. And Iran's like, yeah, we're done with this bullshit. We're not dealing with these two bozos. So it looks like Vance will take the lead on this. And, Vance still has a way to come out looking good. He wasn't a big fan of this war in the first place. And if you notice, he's disappeared. He's not really cheerleading for this war. He's trying to, I think, walk a tightrope. He doesn't want to seem disloyal to Trump, but at the same time, he's not in favor of this war. And I think if he was able to negotiate a settlement, and I don't think Trump's going to last 2 years. He's either going to be removed from office. I think he's deteriorating. I really do. Or he'll die. And Vance will be president that way. And I think Vance can straighten a lot of things out because he's younger, smarter, not senile. He's not a Christian Zionist. Vance doesn't believe we have to kill a lot of people to bring back Jesus or some bullshit like that. We don't need to build the third temple. Jesus Christ is the temple. So I think that will help with that. We'll see. We'll see how Vance is able to help improve his situation here. All right, here's John Mearsheimer talking about some of the lead up to the war. Let's take a look at this clip. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Do you have any indication or feeling of whether President Trump takes into account the advice of the American CIA or the American intelligence community? I realize there's a lot more agencies out there besides the CIA. When it conflicts with the Mossad?
Well, I think, if you look at what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was saying before the war, and the military more generally was saying, and what the intelligence community was saying, and this would include the CIA, but especially the reports on what the National Intelligence Council was saying, it's quite clear that there were all sorts of people and institutions inside the deep state who were telling him that this is not a good idea, that we don't have a viable strategy for winning this war.
I remember that, and they did, and Trump got upset about them. And Trump was one of the joint chiefs of staff, the generals, to say, can you guarantee me that if we attack, this will be a quick regime change? And they said, no, we can't guarantee that. And that got Trump mad because he wanted to. I think Trump, part of the problem, my theory with Trump is one of the reasons he's changed is after his assassination attempt, he surrounded himself with people, these Christian Zionists like that Paula Kook, that told him that he's a special messenger from God. God has a special plan for him in the world history, and he's God's right hand to put justice in the world, whether it be Venezuela or Cuba or Iran. And he needs to do this. This is prophecy. And Trump, he's near the end of his life. He's always been a narcissist. Internalize that and say, yeah, maybe that is it. I'm specially called by God to do these things. And I think that is probably what happened psychologically with Trump.
But instead, what he did was, and here we're talking about President Trump, is he listened to the Israelis and he listened.
Yeah, Netanyahu's been advocating us to get in war with Iran literally for 40 years. That's no joke, 40 years. And he's been saying for 40 years that Iran is just 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon. You think after 40 years, you just say, okay, you're full of shit. It's kind of like these rapture people. Oh, the rapture is going to happen this year for sure. I remember as a kid, these rapture people. Oh, I remember this because 1976 was going to be the bicentennial of America, and I was asking about that. I remember a Christian Zionist said, "Oh, it won't matter. The rapture is going to happen way before 1976." I remember that. Well, that's a long time ago. Then, oh God, Jesus has to return in 1988 because that's 40 years after the founding of Israel. And Jesus said after a generation passes, which is 40 years, he would return. All these things will be fulfilled. That didn't happen. Then they had 2000, Jesus would come. That hasn't happened. So you think these people would be discredited? No, they just keep on going.
To the Zionists in the United States who were pushing him towards war. And this, of course, would include people like General Keane, Lindsey Graham, and his two principal advisors, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. So it's that crew inside the United States, plus the Israelis, who were pushing hard for us to get into this war.
And Jared Kushner, he is Jewish. I'm sure you guys all know. But it's more than that. He's a hardcore Zionist. In fact, he had Netanyahu over at his house and stay at his house like overnight. So, hey, come sleep with us. And he slept in his daughter's bedroom. So they're very, very close. So this is a huge conflict of interest we have here. And again, you have to understand psychologically, I've always said this, and I don't mean this in a sexual way, but Trump, the person he loves most in life, I really do believe this, is not Melania. I don't think he really cares for her that much. She was an ornament he bought. He cares about his daughter Ivanka, and that's who he loves. That's like his wife in a way, in a sense. And so she married Kushner. And so that's another aspect of this, us bringing this forward. So whatever Kushner wants, he's going to support.
I think, generally speaking, against the advice of the deep state.
You have.
Yeah, so he got a lot of bad advice, but still it's up for Trump. He's president. He's not like a baby. He needs to be able to do that. All right, here, and let's just take a look at some of this, what has happened here. Some of the negotiations kind of funny. One of the most consistent, vehement complaints about Obama was he released funds of $1.7 billion to Iran. It was their funds to begin with. He didn't give it to them. Trump's lifting of the sanctions on Iran this week, which he did, could generate $14 billion for Iran. And this is Trump faces blowback. So we're supposed to be at war with Iran or an excursion, whatever the fuck you call it. And usually in war, you just increase sanctions. But in this case, because Trump is so worried about the markets, the oil markets and what that will do, he's actually lifted sanctions on Iran. And this is going to give Iran, Trump's been very, very good to Iran financially. A little bit of irony there, but that is the case. Okay. Now, while Trump was saying that, we have the 5-day deadline, otherwise we'll attack your infrastructure. It was going to be 48 hours. Well, it looks like Israel and the United States, anyway, they're already attacking energy facilities. And at least that's what Iran is saying. And Iran said they will respond to that. So I don't think Israel is going to follow along with that. All right, let me just catch up on some super chats. So thank you all very much for being here. Carrie Cox. Thank you, Carrie. You've been around a long time. I really do appreciate this. Pray Trump can claim victory before this gets a lot worse. Well, Trump has declared victory every day. Literally, I showed you. The guy put together the list. And I joke about it now on X. If you follow me on X, the first thing I say is, when is Trump scheduled to make his daily victory announcement? Because every day he announces victory. It's ridiculous. So that's not really the problem, because he can declare victory all he wants, but Israel and Iran may have other ideas. So even if we should walk away from the war, which I support, but what would happen is Iran still may close the Strait of Hormuz, and that would turn the Gulf states over to Iran, and which means we would no longer have the petrodollar, which means we would have hyperinflation because we couldn't run these deficits. And if they kept attacking Israel, do you really think our politicians, like 87% are bought by Israel, AIPAC, would tolerate that? So it's complicated for Trump to walk away. He's trying to get a deal done desperately with Iran, but Iran doesn't seem to be that interested in it. Rojas, how much Rams do you feel Trump is playing the stock market game? This was interesting, and I have, I think, an update on this too. I don't think this is Trump, but this was leaked. Just 5 minutes before Trump's announcement to halt the attacks on Iran. So right before Trump announced that, hey, we've been negotiating with Iran, we've made a lot of progress. Looks like we're going to have a peace deal soon or a ceasefire. So I've delayed the deadline from 48 hours to 5 days. You remember that? That was Monday morning. And that caused the price of oil to really collapse because everyone thought, oh, great, the Strait of Hormuz will be open here soon. In one move, 1.5 billion in the S&P futures was bought, while 192 million in oil futures was sold. And these orders were 4 to 6 larger than anything else at the time. So someone had inside information that Trump was going to do this information, which seems extremely corrupt. And I'm not saying Trump knew about this or was coordinate this, but someone knew about it and they made a lot of money on it. And thank you for bringing that up, because I had a Colonel McGregor had a pretty good commentary on that. So let's just take a look at this here. This was a colonel in the U.S. Army.
Well, I think we have to understand that we're dealing with Hunter Biden levels of corruption now in the Trump White House. Let me explain why. You put the oil trade up there. There was a bet that the price of oil would tank. And that was a bet of about 150 million.
And so this isn't like, again, I always say this not to pick on Alex Jones. This isn't some weird conspiracy theory. This is a fact. The BBC reported on this.
Another bet was placed that the market would lift, in other words, rise dramatically. That was a $1.5 billion bet. Now, whenever you bet in the market, which is effectively what it's about, it's a big casino. For those who are only in it for casino purposes, as opposed to others that draw income from it over time. What we need to understand is that you bet less on the downside and bet more on the upside. So the $150 million bet paid off because somebody within 3 or 4 minutes of President Trump's announcement knew what President Trump was going to announce. The same thing was true for the 1.05 billion bet that you've got up there now. Both of these bets paid off handsomely. Now, who in the White House could possibly have known, and who in the White House has access to that kind of capital that could have a stupendous impact on profits? Well, I'll let everybody in the audience sort of let that sink in, think about it, and understand that in a normal setting, were this to happen, I would say 50 years ago, 100 years ago, maybe even 30 years ago, the Attorney General would be sitting at his desk or her desk and receive a note saying, we have witnessed this unnatural market behavior that's resulting in mega profits. And it all seems to come right before the president makes an announcement. We feel this justifies an investigation.
Yeah, this should be an investigation. This is obviously, probably, unless someone was psychic, insider trading. And it wasn't necessarily Trump himself that was doing this, because I don't think Trump's allowed to do this. But it was known in the White House. Someone leaked it to investors.
Well, I don't think with Pam Bondi in there's any chance of that investigation happening on the executive side. Now, then the question is, well, what about Congress? Will someone in Congress stand up and say, look at this, this is outrageous? Maybe, but it's unlikely that it will gain much traction because the population of people that sit on the Hill in Congress are busy with insider trading. In other words, everyone in Washington is profiting one way or another from to
Yeah, and remember Nancy Pelosi? And that's all I'll watch of that. But so this is just Republicans. The corruption is deep. So thank you, Rowhouse. I'm glad you brought that up because I did have that clip about that. So yeah, it's pretty shocking what happened there. And that's what happened there. All right. Let's see here. And then, okay, we talked about that. Let's see how this is affecting Trump. We'll go over Trump stuff here now. Oh, and I wanted to mention, because Sasha said a lot of people were being mean to poor Benji because I said he's a pit bull. Or I think he could be a black lab. We'll call him a black lab. He's a sweet dog, likes to roll over, get his tummy rubbed. He's scared of the cats. He's a real wuss. So we'll just call him a black lab. He's a nice dog. He turns 1 year old here, we think, in tomorrow. So we're celebrating it. We found him abandoned on her property, when he's about 8 weeks old. Really sad. We thought about trying to give him to someone else, but no one would take him. So we got him. But he's a good dog. I walk him all the time, and he's kind of goofy. So he's not mean at all. He doesn't attack animals. Well, he attacks like rabbits and squirrels, but not cats or dogs or humans. So I don't know. So he's a good dog. All right, now let's get to Trump. Reuters poll, Trump's approval rating on the economy has sunk to 29%. Yeah, the economy's in bad shape. And Trump, he ran on, hey, I'm going to focus on the economy because that's the most important thing to voters, not fucking around protecting the Epstein class and Israel. But here we are. This is what we're doing. And because we're fucking around with Israel and Iran, it's increasing costs, it's causing a lot of issues, and people are pissed. So I think Trump, here's the poll numbers. It's lower than Biden's rating. So Trump is in a huge problem with people based on the economy, basically on everything, but his actions are really hurting the economy. And his overall approval rating, it's not 100% as Trump thinks. So it's a little bit lower. Let's take a look. Trump's approval rating dropped to 36%, a new low in Reuters El Pos poll, down 40% last week. So his popularity is sinking. And again, I don't think people really give a shit about Iran unless it impacts us. It's starting to impact us with higher gas prices. And I think it's going to be higher inflation. And we're seeing interest rates go up. And this is all bad news for Trump. And I think Trump is aware of this. This is why he's desperately trying to wind this down. But as I said before, it's easy to get into a war. Anyone can get into a war. You just do an attack like we did, the sneak attack. But it's hard to get out of a war unless you have like total victory, because you got to negotiate with another party. And further complicated in this war is we're also involved with Israel. And Israel does what they want. They don't really give a fuck what we want. They see us as something, they get money out of. That's all they care about us. And if we look at some of the data, the polls, I understand why they're saying that. There's a lot of problems here. Let's just take a look at this. In the sudden turns of events, U.S. 12-month inflation expectations have surged to 5.2%, the highest level since March 2023. So in 3 weeks, the marks have gone from pricing in rate cuts to rate hikes. You raise typically the Federal Reserve, the interest rate to try to fight inflation. And it looks like we may get more inflation because of this war. And the longer it goes on, the worse it's going to be on the economy. Kind of like the novel Dune. I don't want to make too much of that, but in the novel Dune, the Fremen and the desert planet, they had control over the substance called spice. It'd be like oil. And if you control the spice, you can control the empire. And you can make a little bit more about it because it's only like 20% of the oil comes through the Persian Gulf. But still, that's significant with prices and creating just disruptions. And the Iranians, they control the Hormuz Strait. Despite Trump declaring victory every day, they still have the military that controls that. So on a strategic level, Iran is winning. And that's the important thing in a war, is achieving your strategic objectives. That's what, war is just a continuation of politics by violence. That's all it is. And if you're going to get into war, you have to have, what are your objectives? You have to be very clear about that. In the United States, we were not very clear about our objectives, except, we'll bomb them and we'll have a new leader that would be friendly to Israel. But they didn't do the next step of like, what if that doesn't work? Then what? And we didn't think about, Trump admitted this. He didn't think, no one thought they would attack the Gulf states. I'm like, what's your problem? Most people knew that. So this is the problem right now here. And as an example of how this could impact things, United Airlines warns of a potential 20% fare hike to cope with the oil surge. So again, that will hurt the economy, hurt tourism, the airline industry. And we're seeing, because of this huge deficit, that's another thing. A lot of wars, the Vietnam War wasn't lost because of the military. It wasn't won or lost because of the military. It was won by the North Vietnamese because of accountants. We could no longer afford the war. Eventually, and this happened with Rome, wars become too much of a drain on the imperial treasury. They're expensive, very expensive. we're spending billions, like $1 billion a day or more on this war. And that could be money used to pay down the deficit, give you money back in tax relief so you could spend it in the economy. All that. No, no, no. We're having to piss it away to, fight for Israel. It's a very expensive. And it's starting to have issues here in our interest rates. And here's another example. 30-year mortgage rate just hit 7%. That's bad because it makes it more difficult for people to afford a home, and higher interest rates make it typically slow down the economy because people can't take out loans. It's too expensive. And so the interest rates going up now are a bad news. Robert, $3 on Powerchats. Thank you. Why are remaining MAGA people still loyal to Trump? Let me copy and paste this, Robert, to the main chat here so everyone can see this. Why are the remaining MAGA people still loyal to Trump? Is it just a cult of what they wish him to be? At this point, he is John McCain, but worse. He betrayed all traitors are worse than open. Just see this. Open enemies, right? Yeah, I mean, I think what happened with Trump, politicians, they typically build coalitions. So it's just not one group, you have multiple groups. And Trump was able to build a broad coalition that, in some of these groups, they kind of don't like each other, but a good politician can bring them together, and you got to bring them together. And so in the Republican Party, you have the typical Republicans, the neocons that put Israel first, like the Ben Shapiro's, Bill Kristol, those types. Then you had the America First Republicans that were about, let's bring jobs here, let's close the border, let's don't get involved with foreign wars. Now, those two conflicted. The traditional Republicans called the others like alt-right, Nazis, that type of thing. If you remember, Ben Shapiro was a never Trumper. But anyway, that was a big coalition too. And then you have the independents that look at certain issues that, while they may not be on board with everything, they're like, hey, I agree with Trump. We need to bring back manufacturing to this country. This isn't a good economic situation. Trump's talking about bringing jobs back from China to the United States. I support that. Or you have people like Tulsi Gabbard, who is a Democrat, saying, hey, I don't want all these wars. Trump promises to focus on America. Let's just, fuck all these wars. Let's focus on America. And so he built a coalition. And so there's always going to be a part of people that will support this, but he's breaking apart the coalition right now. So now the people that support Trump, I would say, are the Zionists, both Jewish and Christian Zionists. They support him because they see this as end time prophecy. And then you have like the boomers that watch Fox News. Honestly, that just they just will always support Trump no matter what. So I think that's why you have some of those people supporting Trump, and they still support him. But again, that is a very small percent of the population, and the Republicans are going to be in trouble with that, because, like it or not, you have to appeal to the independents. You have to build your base, and the Republicans, if their base is we want to kill Muslims to bring back Jesus and build the third temple, yeah, you'll excite the Christian Zionists and Ben Shapiro. But for the majority of the Americans, that's not a winning proposition, especially if your idea of trying to bring back Jesus or the Antichrist, like the Jews want, and by building the third temple, it involves us pissing away our treasury, and interest rates are going up, inflation is going up, gas prices are going up. That's not going to fly. And so we see that. I don't think AIPAC can manipulate Vance like Donald J. Trump. Yeah, I know a lot of people disagree with me, and it could be a lot of the Fuentes crowd because he hates Vance. I don't hate Vance. I think he's evolved over time. He started out, he said, as a neocon, but he realized the error of his ways. He's Catholic now. He's not a Zionist, and I think he's young. He's intelligent. I think he could do pretty well. So I no, they can't manipulate Vance. If you know understand the Zionist or Jewish lobby, they hate Vance. They do not want him in. So that should be a clue. They want Rubio after Trump. If Harris was president, do you think she would be at war with Iran? No, I don't. I don't think she would, even though her husband's Jewish and she has a lot of the Zionist pressures on her. You have to understand all the presidents, even Reagan talked about he was getting pissed off about Israel, how they acted. It was in his private writings, and even Nixon, Kennedy. I mean, they all understood it. And Biden, I mean, I don't like Biden, but he didn't get us in a war with Iran. But I think Trump was vulnerable because of a unique situation and when he was almost assassinated. I think that changed his views that he had, because he said it was just, he wouldn't have moved his head at that exact moment. His head would have been blown off, but he did move his head and it just hit his ear. So he sees this as a miracle. And the people around him, I'm sure, told him it was a miracle. And this means, Donald J. Trump, that God has a special purpose for you. And your purpose is to bring justice to the entire world, like the Bible prophecies. So you get these Zionist Christian heretics, and then like Netanyahu in there too, saying, so what you need to do is start remaking the world. And Iran is evil, so you got to support Israel, and God would really love you then. You'll be good because you're going to die fairly soon. He's 80 years old. He's going to die fairly soon. So you'll get into heaven. So you got to do all this stuff. So I think Kamala wouldn't have had that. Now, I would never vote for Kamala. And don't get me wrong, because I went through this yesterday. Someone asked, no, I'm not going to vote for a Democrat that's anti-white. I'm not going to vote for a woman or a person of color or any of that bullshit. I'm not going to do that ever. So I wouldn't never vote for her. But no, I don't think she would have got us in a war with Iran. Just because of the situation was different. K-Mex, does it feel politically homeless right now? As long as the GOP always becomes this, and Democrats are woke, I guess all local politics is all we have. Well, this is kind of back the way it was. I mean, for years, the Republicans didn't like us and they kept us out. And Donald Trump was the only reason he was able to break in. Remember, they all hated him. I remember back in 2015, 16, they hated him. And they did everything they could to keep him out. But he was a unique individual because he had a lot of money. So he could bypass a lot of that. He had a lot of name recognition. And so he was sort of unique that way. Now, I think the Republicans want to return to the good old days, and that's what they're going to try to do. But the white pill is no, I don't think so. I think the young people, young white people, especially young white men, they are now nationalists, and a lot of them are Christian. They don't have this ideology that we have to give our lives and money to God's chosen people. They don't believe that. And they see what has happened in our country because of such groups. And they're on the right. So the Republicans, they have a big problem with their leadership is old and, the usual support Israel no matter what. But that really differs from the young people. And so a lot of, like, we saw Ted Cruz get booed. You're going to see, I think, Tom Cotton would get booed by young people. But, the people that have the money, AIPAC, they do what they say. But I think there's a shift happening. So it's going to be interesting. So I'm not necessarily black-pilled. As I said, I've never been a Republican per se. I'm not registered as a Republican. I'm independent. I support Republicans more as long as they support my interest in the people. But that's why I supported Donald Trump. He was going to get the illegals out, hopefully even the people that don't belong here out, like the Haitians, Somalis. I support that. They don't belong here. He was going to stop these foreign wars. I supported that. But he betrayed us on that. So the only reason I supported him because of those issues, it wasn't because of him personally. But a lot of people still feel like I do, and they still have the longing of, hey, we want a country where we have self-determination, where Israel's not running our politicians, where our politicians represent us. I know that's a radical idea. That's anti-Semitic that our politicians should represent Americans, but that's what I want. And I don't want politicians that hate white people like Kamala. So, yeah, I see what you're saying there, but yeah, I think we can do okay there. Let me just go through here. I'm just going through, make sure I got all the super chats and rants. All right. So we talked about the mortgage. All right. See a couple other Trump clips of today. And this is that, Trump claiming every day claims he wins the war. Yes, Trump won the war. Everything he says about Iran was also true of Iraq, which led to the mission accomplished banner in front of Bush 5 weeks after the war began. If he thinks he won, great. Then why keep going? You won. Yeah, it doesn't have much internal logic about it, but that is a definite thing. Now, you have to always look what's happening behind the scenes, not what politicians say. So while Trump is saying this war is won, and he's talking about ceasefires and peace agreements, behind the scenes, per Axios, and they're very tied to Israel, the U.S. is preparing for military escalation in Iran, including boots on the ground, despite Trump's announcement today that the war of Iran has been won. So we are sending ground troops to Iran, or at least to not Iran, the Middle East, supposedly, I'd imagine, for some sort of invasion. And so all the talk about peace and the war won, if that's the case, why are we sending more and more troops there? And again, we have more and more updates on that. Trump to deploy 1,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne to the Mideast. So that is happening. So more and more troops are going there. And another thing I found that was interesting, because they kind of kept a secret, because Iran said they did an attack on our aircraft carriers, and that was poo-pooed like, they didn't do that. But listen to this here. And I think Trump accidentally leaked information that was confidential.
With our great Patriot missiles, think of it, they shot 100 missiles at one of our aircraft carriers, the Abraham Lincoln, one of the biggest ships in the world, actually. And out of 101 missiles shot, every single one of them was knocked down in the sea. Think of that.
Well, to me, what's amazing is Iran had intelligence where our aircraft carrier, the Abraham Lincoln, was on the sea. Because remember, aircraft carriers are not static, they keep moving. So hitting an aircraft carrier with a missile, a ballistic missile, was considered almost impossible. And by the way, after this, because people are wondering, the aircraft carrier was pretty close to Iran, then mysteriously it really backed off far away. And I think it was due to this incident.
Think of what that means. 101 missiles, highly sophisticated, very fast missiles shot. Out of 101, all 101 were shot down, and now, for the most part, lie at the bottom of the sea. It's pretty amazing, right? Pretty amazing. Our military is amazing, Pete.
So Trump, I don't think he meant to, but he confirmed that Iran had intelligence where the aircraft carrier was and was actually attempting, which a lot of people thought was impossible. It's easier to hit a static target that just sits there, but how do you hit a moving target, right? But it scared the Abraham Lincoln enough that they retreated, and that was a big issue. And let me just see some more updates on this. And one of the big updates now is, do I have this? Well, the Gerald Ford, that was a very strange situation. That was our most modern aircraft carrier, is the most modern aircraft carrier. It was deployed to Iran. Remember, it had been at sea for a long time, and there were reports that sailors were unhappy because it went to Venezuela and then to the Middle East. And that supposedly they had problems with their sewage system and with the toilets not working. And then there was a fire, like a laundry room fire, they said. And it's like, okay, well, big deal, right? A pair of sorts, they forgot to clear out lint, and they created a fire. But it turned out the fire was bigger than people thought, and it like destroyed like 600 sailors' sleeping areas, and they had to sleep on the floor. And they injured some sailors trying to put out the fire, and I guess the fire raged on for days. Like, wow, that's pretty weird for a laundry room fire. And then it was like, yeah, it's no big deal. They just have to go to Crete, and they got to, just refurbish in a week, and they will be back in action. And that hasn't happened. In fact, what has happened is it now looks like the Gerald Ford is out 12 to 14 months. It has serious problems. So here it is. I found it. There were rumors about this a couple days ago, but it was, everyone thought, oh, this is just propaganda. This isn't true. But it looks like it is true. And again, this is our most sophisticated aircraft carrier. This is Bloomberg, mainstream media, citing a Pentagon report. Concerns about Ford aircraft carrier range from serious to minor. Among the concerns is a lack of an assessment report on the carrier's operational capability. Another concern is the efficiency of the systems related to the fighter jets stationed on the carrier. Another concern is the carrier's ability to continue to operate when under enemy fire. What the hell? It's a warship. That's what it should be designed for. It's like, yeah, we got this great carrier, but it can't be used in war. No. So it's a lot deeper than the fire in the laundry room. And if Ford carrier comes under attack, there's no guarantee it will continue to operate. So the reports is going back to the United States, it's going to be out a year or 14 months, and giving the government it will be longer. So now we've confirmed that the Iranians shot missiles at the Abraham Lincoln. That was secret until Trump blurted it out, and Trump was saying we shot down all the missiles. But could have Iran shot missiles at the Gerald Ford? I heard rumors, they said they did and damaged the Ford. And I thought, well, that's bullshit, because to hit an aircraft carrier with a missile so hard from a ballistic missile. I mean, maybe if you have a torpedo and you're right there, because again, aircraft carriers, they don't sit still, they move. So how do you do that? I don't know how you would technically do that. because you give a GPS or coordination or of a static target. But yeah, I could see that. But of a ship that moves, I was like, yeah, that's almost impossible. But because they obviously the Iranians thought it was possible, because according to Trump, they sent 100 missiles or 101 to the Abraham Lincoln. And the Abraham Lincoln, according to Trump, shot them all down. And then they retreated. But the Gerald Ford, why wouldn't they attack the Gerald Ford? They might have, and did one hit. It wasn't a laundry room fire. Was that just a bullshit story the military's telling us to try to keep morale up? I don't know anymore. I just find it strange that a laundry room fire would take out our most expensive flagship aircraft carrier for 14 months. That just seems weird to me. I'm not saying maybe it is possible. I don't know. It's just, I would think people on aircraft carriers are trained with fire control. I'm not sure how this all happened. Was it sabotage? Was it an Iranian missile? Was it poor design? And Bloomberg is saying that this aircraft carrier is not combat ready. Are you kidding me? We spent over $1 billion on this aircraft carrier. This was supposed to be the most modern one in existence. And now it's useless in combat. And they might as well sunk it. It's not a good look for the American military at all. It's quite shocking, actually. All right, let's see here. Just going through, take a look at the super chats. Oh, $20. Thank you. Big fan of the RAMZPAUL shows. Thanks for being a voice for our people. Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for your support. I really do. I'm not always right, but I try to be accurate. And I'm not controlled by anyone. So I will give you that. I'm just, I count on you guys for your tips and support. And I do appreciate that. All right. So our aircraft carrier, our flagship aircraft carrier, is officially out of service because of a laundry fire. And it's going to limp back to the United States. And according to Bloomberg, it can't operate in combat conditions. Great. All right. And some more about Israel and how they kind of do their own thing. Here's another clip that I find that's interesting. Let's take a look at this.
Well, they're two different fronts. I think Trump, if he cared, is not really holding Netanyahu back in Lebanon. I think that they did originally have the same goal, and then Israel sort of veered off when it actually provoked this latest crisis by hitting the Pars airfield, gas field last week, and that started this massive retaliation.
Yeah, Israel's trying to escalate this because they want, again, Netanyahu wants to bring back the Messiah, who will be the Antichrist, and it's just batshit insane. So they're doing things to fuck things up, like they attacked the energy field in Iran, and Trump said he knew nothing about it. And then I believe they did a false flag and they attacked one of our air bases in the Indian Ocean with a ballistic missile from their submarine. They're trying to blame Iran for that to try to get whooped up against Iran. So watch. And again, I'm not like the Alex Jones false flag. Everything's a false flag. But I could definitely see Israel trying to do a false flag, maybe even in America, to try to get Americans on board with totally toppling Iran. The Netanyahu government does not want a peace settlement with Iran.
From Iran on other gas fields, and more retaliation against Israel, including close to Israel's undeclared nuclear weapons plants, and areas in Dimona, Arad, etc. And Trump, we're meant to believe, originally said, oh my goodness, I've told you, well, you saw it on Truth Social, that Israel should not attack those gas plants anymore. And then it turned out that actually he knew about it, and it was all a plan to see if it would work to tamp down Iran and to get it to back off. Instead, it escalated. So what we're in right now is escalation on all.
So yeah, that's the point. Is did Trump know that Israel was going to attack the field? He claimed he didn't know. I don't think he did know. I think the Americans knew below, because I don't, how they coordinate their air attacks. People, and I haven't been involved in this military operation, but my understanding, they coordinate this, and it'd be inconceivable that the Israelis would just go on their own and attack something without our knowledge, just because we have to coordinate it so we don't shoot down their planes. But maybe Trump didn't know. But the point is, Israel definitely doesn't want a peace agreement. They want to escalate the conflict. That's a wild card in all this whole process. Whether we'll get a peace agreement or not, I don't know. I don't see looking at it very likely to happen. All right, one last thing. We had and this is kind of related, about how we're just controlled as a people. This is in Wisconsin. Just take a look here.
I give you this by way of example. Some pond scum felt empowered and emboldened enough to put this picture of me up to try to threaten and.
So this guy put a picture of the sheriff up with a Star of David on his forehead.
Intimidate me, which of course he didn't do because I signed up for this. And by the way, the person that did this said a bunch of terrible things, not just against me, but against a lot of groups and individuals, who, by the way, was arrested today in Wisconsin. My point is this, though. If this person is emboldened and empowered enough or feels safe enough to do this for me, what does he do to a kid? What does he do to a Jewish family walking down the street?
Well, there's a difference between speech and a physical attack, you piece of shit. So this is guy saying he feels emboldened because our founding fathers gave us freedom of speech in the First Amendment. And because this piece of shit didn't like being made fun of, he went to have him arrested.
And that's because of the normalization of this, watching this on television and saying, okay, I feel empowered enough that I can do this.
Damn right. We're fucking Americans, you fucking asshole.
Well, A, you can't.
Yeah, you can. You can. We're America's the first American. So fuck you. You should be removed from office. You should be fucking sued. So yeah, you can. Fuck off.
And B, if you think you can do it to somebody that's in law enforcement, again, what are you going to do?
Right. You can do it against politicians. You could put a Star of David. You could call your politician's name. You're not going to be arrested in America. You shouldn't be. So this piece of shit, it did a press conference bragging how he arrested this guy because his feelings were hurt.
In an alley or in a street to a Jewish family or a kid walking down the street? We say no.
Those are two different things, you asshole. Making fun of you for being a fucking a Jewish stooge is different than physically attacking someone, asshole. So this is where we are. This is the threat we have in our country. It's not Iranian sleeper cells. Iranians aren't trying to remove our First Amendment. Iranians aren't trying to censor our videos. So if videos are shut down on YouTube, it's not going to be because of Iranian pressure groups. So Iranians are not the problem. So I found that outrageous, and that is what it is. Rental flag, $2. Thank you. Trump on Wall Street. Many suspect he has his extended family hedge bets with insider trading and enrich himself. Market traders have noticed he makes big moves on Fridays and announcements on Mondays. Yeah, I don't know enough to say that Trump is doing this for his family, like Barron or something. I just don't know. He does manipulate the market. Trump does, because he's worried about it. because he considers a high stock market, meaning America's doing well. He's often bragged about that. Like, why should we care about pedophiles that rape children? The stock market's at 50,000. Remember Pam Bondi said that? That's how they think. And so he's real concerned about that. And you're right. So that's why if he's going to do something he thinks may hurt the stock market, he will announce it Friday after the stock market closes, like he did last time. $40, I'm going to wipe out your infrastructure. And then Monday morning, before the stock market opens, that's when he comes out trying to calm things by lying, saying, oh, we got these negotiations going. They're going really well. So he does manipulate the markets 100%. And someone's getting this information. I don't know who, but someone is being leaked, and they're making a lot of money on it, and it's disgusting. But yeah, thank you for that. I don't think Trump is doing it directly. I don't know why he would want to. I don't understand these people. Maybe I'm wired different, but as I get older, I realize you have a really short time on this earth. And he's 80 years old. And I'm not saying this as a threat or anything. I'm just saying he's probably going to die soon. Because when you get 80, you're dying. And I don't give a shit. Your diet, your exercise, you're fucking deluding yourself. It doesn't mean shit. You're dying at 80. It's just a matter of time. And so he's going to die soon. So why is he caring about? I mean, he's worth billions. So why would he care about a few hundred more million? Why at that point? It doesn't really make sense. I kind of joked. I always make the joke like, oh, I hope it's the end of the world's coming. If the end of the world's coming, I'm definitely going to live stream, because just think about it. If a meteor's coming to wipe out the whole earth, yeah, man, I'll get a lot of SuperChats. It's like, well, what difference would it make? We're all dead. I don't know why Trump thinks that way, but some of these people do think this way. It's pretty crazy. But Trump is definitely doing that. And as I talked about earlier in the show, while we're fighting this war in Iran, Israel decided to invade Lebanon again. What's up with that? Doesn't Lebanon have a right to exist? Because if you never want to support Israel with our tax money, why don't you agree that Israel has a right to exist? Well, doesn't Lebanon have a right to exist? Didn't we get all mad at Russia for invading Ukraine? But Israel's invading Lebanon, of course. And they're fighting the Hezbollah, who's funded by Iran. So that is what's happening there. And let's see here. This was from a telegram. A lot of the Israelis are upset with Trump because they're worried he's going to get a peace deal. And they're upset, saying he's not going to finish the job. And I've often said all his Zionist supporters are going to turn hard on him if he does a peace deal. And they are not going to be happy with that whatsoever. It's going to be kind of funny here, because all these people have said, oh, Trump has God's special purpose in life, all that. But if he doesn't go through, because then they're going to be disappointed again. It's like, we were so hoping Jesus would finally come back, or we'll have our third temple and we'll get the Antichrist. But we're foiled again. So that could I find that interesting. So they are very upset with that. All right, let me just see here. The other thing, while Trump was fucking around with Iran, we got an issue with the TSA. Is, I guess in some airports, it's just a disaster. And Houston airport collapses overnight. TSA shut down. Passengers left sleeping on the floor until 3:30 a.m. People, I guess, waiting 4 or 5 hours to go through the TSA checkpoints. And The TSA wasn't slow. It wasn't backed up. It was shut down. A line stretched from the basements through the terminal. Zero movement for hours. People missing flights before security even open. So this is suitcases everywhere. And here's people. Let me just turn off the sound. What a disaster. What a disaster. So, again, you could say this, oh, it's the Democrats' fault. Well, Trump's president, and he's fucking around with Iran for Israel. It's not a good look. Not a good look at all. So, this is where we are right now. All right. All right. Let's see here. I think I got all my super chats, and it's been an hour and a half. It's been a fun show. It's been great doing this with you guys. I really do appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And I will be back tomorrow night. I used to just do it Wednesday nights but I've been live streaming every night now. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you guys for being here. And I will see you tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Central. So God bless. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.